Hey, Polka Dot sisters and our friends across the globe. It is Shannon Crotty, founder and CEO of Polka Dot Powerhouse, today with another 10-year dot interview. Today we have the beautiful, so impactful, amazing leader, Heather Rothbauer Wanish. Heather, thank you for being with us today.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me.
So Heather, for those of you who have not, there's only like a handful, not even a handful, like someone lost some fingers, like three of us, I think, from the very, very beginning. And
Mhm.
Heather is one of those. It's funny to think back then because, so again, there's only two other people, me and you and one other person that knows this that's still in Polka Dot, but we had trainers.
Mhm.
Do you remember that? Trainers at the
Yes.
very beginning. And very quickly we learned, okay, trainers are great, but maybe not our mission. But Heather was one of our trainers. So like from day one, from -1, like before we launched, Heather was in there. And so literally probably Tina, me, Tina from Heaven, me, and then probably Heather was like the next dot in there. So like you have been here for a long time.
Yes. Yeah, honestly, I can't believe it's been that long because I mean, in some ways to see how far everything's come, it does seem that way. But then when I go to a meeting, it doesn't seem like it's been, over 10 years. So,
Right. Right. But I'm jumping ahead. So I want to
Mhm.
backtrack a little bit because I think lots about you, but maybe people watching won't know as much as they should about you. Tell us who you are, what you do, what your passion is.
Mhm. Sure. So I'm Heather Rothbauer Wanish, and I am one of the OGs. So I get to say that at the meetings that I go to now. So that's fun. But I found out about Polka Dot through Shannon because I did some writing for the magazine that she used to have. And so I just remember when she said, "Hey, I'm starting this thing. Do you want to come to a meeting?" I was like, "Sure, of course, I'll go to all of the meetings of all of the things." So yeah, I went to the first meeting and there was a handful of us there, and I thought, well, yeah, I'll sign up for this. It's pretty cool. And I always tell people I don't remember exactly how many people were at that meeting, but it wasn't a huge amount, of course, because it was just local. But now to see how far it's grown has been really interesting. So when I originally joined, I did freelance writing. That sort of morphed more into just resume writing at this point. So that's my main focus. That's what I'm passionate about. I also teach at a local university, but I'm very happy to have the summer off right now. And then my son has a maple syrup business. So I literally just came in from bottling maple syrup. So I've got a lot of passions, but those are the kind of the three things that keep me going. And I'm local to Shannon, so I'm in northwestern Wisconsin. So that's also how I got to be an original part of it because we're, within 20-25 minutes of each other too.
Absolutely. And there was 12 people at the first meeting, and I have done in my notes that 10 people joined. So it's really interesting now that we have to like cap meetings, right? And in some areas cap at different levels than other areas. But yeah, it is really amazing to I was just doing another interview, and we were talking about how we used to have personal, and we used to
Is
have personal, I don't know what evidently the word personal.
balloons, yay!
Personal. We used to have personal, used to have business memberships. And I remember in that interview, I remember when the leadership team coming to me and saying, so and so sold their business, so we gotta kick them out of business, right? And I'm like, I hadn't really thought about what would happen. And granted, I think our main membership, I mean, although business happens there, is really about the sisterhood and the connection, and the diamond
Right.
is more like a professional, but we don't have official business personal memberships per se. And that was, we have changed and evolved so much since the beginning that it's interesting to think back about that time because it was like, wow, it's really a wonder we made it because
Mhm. Well, it's just things change and things happen, and it's like, oh, that didn't work how we thought it was going to, or that worked a lot better than how we thought it was going to. So then you do more of that.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, I think what I find interesting is that even to this day, like I love going to Celebration, don't get me wrong. But you know, a lot of people that are in polka dot are very like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you, and they give you a big hug and all of that. And I am not like a huggy type of person. So at first I call myself a recovered hugger, I guess, or I'm in hug therapy because I'm over it now. I mean, no problem. But it's just funny because I think sometimes when people are outside looking in, they think like that's what polka dot is. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, and loves to be around people all of the time. And I mean, I do like to be around people, but I'm also somebody that needs to have my alone time too. And I think that's one of my favorite parts about polka dot is that no matter if you're on this spectrum of things or over here, it doesn't matter. Like everybody just accepts you for who you are.
I agree with that. And, I think that you probably heard me talking about that. I'm not an extrovert. Like I'm an ambivert and I'm a hugger, but that being said, like I tend to absorb energy. And so I love people, but I also get peopled out. Like I describe ambivert as I love people, but I'm usually breathing in a bag an hour before and I need 4 days of downtime after.
Right?
And there
Yep.
was so long that I felt like I had to hide that because that's not what a connection company founders, they're supposed to want to people all the time, right? Like, what will people think? And it's so interesting that the minute, and no one, because I remember like the first couple of celebrations, especially the first one that we were outside of our own area in 15 in the cities. I'm like, well, the hostess is supposed to be here till the thing closes down. And I remember the pink and orange party at that point. I'm like, will they please leave? Because I can't leave till they leave. And I was like falling over. Then all of a sudden I got the courage to say, well, it's 8:30 or 9. I'm going to bed. No one penalized me. As far as I know, no one talked any smack to me. Like
Yeah.
they the community has really taught me lessons about just be yourself. Like that's what we want. And I do really love how diverse the personalities are here. So total introverts, extroverts, ambiverts, and everything in between. And we all really respect and appreciate each other and what we bring to the table. So there's no need for you to worry about putting up a certain mask or trying to pretend to be.
Yeah, and that's the thing about celebration every year because there's so many people that are like, oh my gosh, I need two roommates or three or like a one or whatever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no way, like I need my own room, like no. So
Absolutely. No,
yeah,
absolutely. And there's people like what's really interesting is there's people like that's the only time they get to people in person. And so when they're there, they want the 14 roommates, right? And there's others of us who need that decompression time and like it's all cool, you do you.
yep, exactly. So now I don't worry about it, like it is what it is, and
Right.
yeah, exactly.
And I don't always remember to, but I've started a new practice where I'll say when I go up to people that I don't know and I don't know if they're a hugger or not, because there's nothing like figuring out someone's not a hugger when you're hugging them, because it's like the
Like,
straight down,
mhm,
right? And I'll
yeah,
say hand or a hug.
yep,
You like a hand or a hug? And so sometimes I forget, but most of the time I try to do that till I know them. Um, but I like that you said that, right? Because I think that there's this misconception until you get into polka dot. Look, I don't like to people all the time, which is I think is getting more and more common, especially since like with COVID and everything, we got used to filling our own cups on our own.
yep,
Granted, the world's full of extroverts too, but I think that there's more and more people who aren't needing that all the time, or they get overwhelmed. And so I like that you said that because I think some people think, oh, a group like Polka Dot, I don't want to people all the time. Well, yeah, I don't want to people all the time either.
no, no.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
I think it's nice that you can choose, like if you want to go to an in-person meeting and it's by you, great, do it. If you want to do something online, great, do it. If this couple of weeks just isn't your thing, don't worry about it. Nobody says like, where were you or anything like that. If anything, it would be like, hey, we missed you.
right,
Um, and that's also what I like too, I guess, is the flexibility and not feeling like I have to do something.
right. You're not required to be there. The
Right.
only I don't know if it was Denise, one of the leaders said, the only time you might reach out is just to make sure you're okay, right? Like, should someone have looked for you or you're all right? You're good.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's comforting too. So okay. You are this incredible leader. I've always known that you're an incredible leader. It's really interesting. We have other resume writers in Polka Dot, but it's really interesting when someone in the members group says, anybody know anybody who does resumes? And that's like, Heather, 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 Heather. There's a lot of Heathering because you have made that really I know you sling maple syrup and all that stuff now too, but you've made that really the cornerstone of one of your
Mhm.
areas of genius, and you haven't mucked it up with a lot of confusing stuff. And so that's really,
Right.
people remember that really easily.
Yeah, and it's really nice. And I mean, honestly, like probably when I joined Polka Dot, it was much more for, oh my God, this is a great way to build my business.
Yeah.
But to me, it's not that anymore. It is more about the people, and I know Denise Bender says that too. She's an only child, so am I. So it's like, I'm used to being by myself. Like and I'm okay with that because that's the way it was.
Right.
But it's kind of nice now because like along the way, it's like you've almost accidentally made friends. So now it's like I just was looking on Facebook and somebody in a totally different area is like, hey, I need somebody that does XYZ. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know somebody. And I
Right.
know somebody through Polka Dot. So I think, yeah, the resume thing, when everybody puts my name out there, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like that's awesome. So I mean, I definitely get business from Polka Dot, but it's almost like a byproduct of just building the relationships.
Yeah.
It's not my main focus anymore. But I think one of the things that people have too, especially if they don't have a business, is like, well, I don't have a business, I can't be in it. And it's like, you can totally be in it. You can just be you.
Right.
Like, you know?
Absolutely. I like that you said that because I have been at a launch and someone said, well, I love the group, but I don't have business. I'm like, not to minimize how stressful, complicated, challenging it is to own a business. But if you run a household, you have the components to go to a business speaker and apply it to your life. And the same is true if you're take a personal speaker and apply it to your business life. Like all the things in our lives are connected. We got to stop, or I recommend people stop trying to put these walls to segment them, and just know that it all affects it all. The other thing that I have been advocating to members, because like I've had members come to me and say, yeah, I know, but what if we're on a walk and everybody's always asking what their business is? And what do I say? I'm like, we need to retrain our members to ask, what are you passionate about? If that is your business, that's going to come up. If it's horses, that's going to come up. If it's making movies, that's going to come up. If it's your kids, that's going to come up. As opposed to what do you do for a
Right.
business? Maybe that, yeah, right. What are you passionate about?
Yeah. No, I agree with that totally. Totally. Because the other thing I've focused on, I feel like, which I think also leads to business eventually and referrals, but it's like I like to be the connector person. Like I said, I just saw somebody that needs somebody like weed a garden or whatever. It's like, oh my gosh, I know somebody. And I'm not doing that because I think 6 months down the road that guy is going to need a resume writer. I just do it because I know like, hey, she could use that work and she's really good at it.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's funny because I think over the past 10 years too, somebody told me once, like, oh my gosh, you know so many people. Well, yeah, because I go to the meetings, I do the things, and then that way when somebody needs somebody for something, it's like, yeah, actually I do know somebody,
Right.
And so I guess that's what I like to do because then I feel like you're giving it out there and at some point in some format or another, whether it's business or a friend you need in some terrible time, it'll come back to you.
Absolutely. It's like everybody's got to do what they think is best, but sometimes you see people, it's they're so desperate for this and this, and you know what it's like to be in that situation,
Yeah.
so you don't judge them, but you're like, if you just let go just a little bit and put out into the world what you want to receive, it might not be in 5 minutes, but it's going to
Oh,
get reciprocated back to you manyfold, right?
right. Exactly. I mean, honestly, like all the people, the other thing, how do I want to say it? The other thing I think I would want people to know too is that I don't think for those of us that have been in polka dot so long, I think sometimes I take for granted how uplifting, nice, respectful, doesn't mean you have to agree on everything. I mean, nobody does, and how positive everybody is. Because once in a while, I'll see something or somebody, and I'm like, oh my God, like that person just sucked the life out of me. And then I think, that's because I don't surround myself with
Right.
those types of individuals anymore because I'm so used to being around everybody else that's, and granted, we all have bad days, and
Right.
times, but it's just so nice to not have that dragging you down all the time. And at least if you're having a bad time, it boosts you up too.
Right. In the dot bubble, we call it in the dot bubble, right? And it's
Yes.
sometimes after celebration, I've had members come home and say, no one was cheering for me, no one was lifting me or like celebrating me. And it was a big downer to come home to that, right? Because in
Yeah.
the dot bubble, people just and it's not what I really have always been so impressed with is that yes, there are people in our community who do business but it's never like I'm going to help you and also here's a lipstick you need to buy, right? Like there's never that consequence to accepting help from people. It's because people genuinely care about you and they understand a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Is that quote? I may have messed that up. I don't know. But when we all rise, everybody that you're associated with rises. And
Right.
so it's not that, do they hope someday you'll need lipstick? Maybe, but it's not a consequence of accepting um, help from them.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I do take that for granted a little bit now because most of the people that I talk to on the regular are polka dots. And so when I come across somebody and not that they're not a dot, but just don't have that mindset, it's like, oh my gosh. Like
Right.
so it really, really is who you surround yourself with. Oh my goodness. Um,
Absolutely.
even
Absolutely.
for those of you that are watching, my brother-in-law had to pick up something from Shannon's porch today, a shirt. And I told him last night, I was like, yeah, it's the lady that founded Polka Dot. And he's like, oh, okay. Like he already knew. So I said, I'm like, just pick up my shirt, please, on the way. But it's just funny because now, yeah, I just said, I gotta go in. I gotta go in because I have this polka dot thing. And my dad's like, oh, okay. Like I must talk about it enough that they're
Right.
not like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" So it's
Absolutely.
kind of funny.
It's really interesting. So every once in a while, we'll hear some members have come up to me and said before that like at first their family was like, what's this polka dot thing? But then after a period of time, like if they're having a blue day or if they're frustrated, they're like, you know what? Do you have a polka dot meeting? Because you always seem really happy when you come back from a polka dot meeting, right? Like they start to understand that this person, maybe not needs polka dot, but they get their cup filled there. And
Right.
their people in their surroundings start to notice that.
Yeah, it is. It's like I said, it's really interesting how it like infiltrates your life because one of the things that if you guys are watching this, at the meetings we say, hey, what are your connections, collaborations you've had, whatever. There's some people in the group that we have so many that after a while it's like, oh yeah, she's a dot. Like it just kind of all blurs together,
Right.
which I think is really kind of nice.
That is nice. So, for those who maybe are not in our community or are new to our community, we've always had as long as we've had a celebration, we've had an impact award. And in 2019, we decided to make one leadership before we just had an impact award, period. But it was primarily leadership, right? Because they were doing the most things in the company. In
Right.
2019, we decided to segment that and make a leadership version and a member version. And I remember when we were picking, and if you're not getting where I'm going here, Heather was the very first recipient because she wasn't on Legacy at that point. She was the very first recipient of the Member Impact Award. And I remember when we were choosing that award, some things that are always, that is a award that Brian and I is who we choose. Other awards are member voted. But I wanted someone that had been a long time member, someone that had really was active in the community, was a great role model for what it is to be a productive, impactful, positive person, and someone that was member loved. And I remember it was like, it wasn't, we have a lot of members that we love, but when we made this decision in 2019, it was like there was one choice that was like blaring at us. Did you have any inkling that it was going to be you?
No, so I have to show you this because I literally have it right here. Um, No, because I remember sitting, because it was in Boston, and I remember sitting there. And that I would honestly, what I was thinking was, oh my gosh, I have to get to bed pretty soon because we have to get up super early for this flight tomorrow. And then, you guys were talking, and I was listening, and then I thought, oh my God, I think they might be talking about me. you know? So no, it's so funny because that's literally was like, "God, we have to get up at like 3, I gotta get to bed."
Right.
No, I had no idea. Probably until, I don't know, until you guys were almost done speaking. Did I have a clue? No, I had no clue.
One of my favorite photos is that photo of you coming up to get your award, and there's all these people like up on their feet cheering behind you. That I don't know why, but that is one of my favorite photos. One of my favorite photos from Polka Dot ever.
Yeah, mine too. And I remember thinking, oh my God, now I have to say stuff like um but yeah, no, I was very surprised. I remember because then, so again, if those of you haven't been at Celebration, um I remember going, because I had room by myself, so I took it up to the room, and I called my husband, and I was like, no, like, you don't understand, like, this is a big deal, this is a huge deal, and yeah, so no, I had no idea. And I think that honestly, like, that was a great part of it, is like not having any idea. So I've really enjoyed the last couple of years, like, seeing who gets it.
Right.
Um, because I know what it feels like. It's like, oh my God, I felt like I won the Oscar, the Oscar award,
You won the
honestly.
Polka Dot Oscar, that's for sure.
Yeah, really.
One of Brian and I's favorite things to do is to give it to people who are impactful in our community. And since that time, as of last year, we've also added, so now there's a legacy version, a leadership, a member, and a managing director version of that, right? Because it kept getting tilted towards certain people because they do so much in our community that I wanted it, to do that. But especially the member version for us, we want it to be members that are super impactful, but don't necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily think they'd get the award.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're not like probably like they're the shining star for sure, but they're maybe not the loudest person in the room. They're not maybe like the most well-known person in the community, although you were at the time, I think. But we like to give it to people who we think would not assume it's them.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I definitely did not assume it would be me. So yeah.
Awesome. And then now you're on legacy leadership. So okay, so you've been a member since 2012.
Mhm.
You got the Impact Award in 19. What was that progression like? What made you want to get on the legacy team?
Well, I think part of it's because I've been around it for so long, and I know what kind of impact it can have on people. And sometimes I think, obviously any community that you're in, you get out of it what you put into it. Like, that's just how it works. I mean, that's just life, frankly.
Right.
Um, and so I think, I kept seeing like different, like, oh, there's an opening for this, opening for that. And then I was like, I don't know, it just kept like digging at me, and I was like, I think I'm gonna do that. So yeah, I mean, I like being in leadership positions. That's just my personality, but so I like that. But I think just, to me, like, having maybe a little bit more of a bird's eye view of what's going on, and like, how can I help? How can I help so that everybody else understands the benefits of this organization and realize it's not just surface level?
Right.
Um, so I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to, is because I know what it's done for me personally and my business, but more me personally. So that's why I thought, I think I want to do this.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can have that sort of impact with people in that sort of leadership position.
Right. I remember when your app came in, I'm like, how long do I gotta wait to make it look like kosher? Then of course, Heather Rothbauer, Wanish, are you insane? How quickly can we get her on this team?
Yeah, no, I just really like it, and I like, so for those of you that don't know, what I do is like answer the emails and the things like that from like the event stuff. Well, I love to write, so I'm like, oh, hello, I love that stuff anyway. But yeah, it's just hopefully being a tiny part of letting everybody else know, like, hey, this is my journey. Here's what it can do for you. Here are the tools, but at the end of the day, again, you have to, make it happen. So,
Right. I love that. Okay, so just a few more questions and then I'll let you go into a very abundant day, I'm sure. But what do you think? Because this is a great question for you since you've been here from the very beginning. What do you think is in your mind, is the most significant, impactful evolution that we've had? Like, what is the biggest change that we've had with Polka Dot between now and 2012 and now?
oh my goodness, that's a hard one.
It is hard.
Well, I would say, oh my, that is a really hard one. I would say that it's always been inclusive, in my opinion. It's always been a place where you can go to talk about personal stuff if you want, professional stuff if you want. But I think for me, the biggest evolution has been from starting out as a local chapter to now having the capability to literally connect with dots all over.
Yeah.
Like literally all over, online, in person. If you're traveling, hey, you're going to Denver, guess what? There's a chapter there. You're going here, there's a chapter there. So to me, that's been the biggest evolution, is the ability to, and I love where I live, except in the winter, but other than that, I love it for the most part.
Yeah.
I love where I live. I love the people in my local chapter, but I think the biggest evolution is the availability, if you want, to connect with people in different countries and different parts of the United States or wherever you want. I think to me that's the biggest evolution.
Absolutely. Yeah, is the reach, right? Like there's
Right.
local is great, but when you understand the significance and the possibility of connecting with people in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, like like it's almost sometimes a little scary how much it just opens everything up.
Right, right. And so I like that. And again, I think, and this was something that was at the beginning too, but it's flexible. Like, hey, if what you want to do is meet with your local chapter, then do that. If you have a business or you want to connect with somebody, you want to talk to somebody in England because you like listening to their accent, then jump on one of their meetings, you
Right.
can if you want. So I think the flexibility of it for me is what's very nice, because if you want to do that, great. And if you don't, whatever, no
Right.
problem.
Absolutely. Why, my final question before I ask you some information about yourself, but why do you think sisterhood is important?
Hmm. Well, let's see. Like I said, I grew up as an only child, so I've never had sisters or brothers or whatever. Um, but I think it helps you get through things maybe that you don't even see coming. My mom passed away about 6 weeks ago, and the people that have checked in on me, including Shannon and Brian, sending a card, people sending cards, or just even a Facebook message or a text message, just knowing that somebody is paying attention and is like, hey, are you okay? And isn't like overbearing about it or anything like that. But to me, that's what's been important, because as most of when you get older, it's not super easy to run around and make a bunch of friends, like where do you go to make a bunch of friends?
Right.
So to me, this has been a nice way to do that, because they really are people that actually care about you. It's not just your business or their business or whatever. It's like they actually care. And like Denise came to my mom's funeral. I was like, oh my God, like she came to my mom's funeral. She didn't know my mom, but she knows me. And so that just means, to me, that means a lot. And just having people you can count on if you need something, knowing that you can, shoot them a text or whatever. Or yeah, it's been really, really impactful for me personally in the last 6 weeks. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so sorry about your loss and sending you a big hug on that. But I know you don't like a hug, so I'm sending you a
and
virtual
I
hug.
did take hugs last week at the meeting because somebody was like, I want to give you a hug. I'm like, do it.
Right?
I could
Yeah.
actually use a hug right now. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's to me, that's been the biggest thing through the good times and the not so great. Like at least you have people you can chat with or hang out with or have a coffee with or whatever.
Absolutely. I think that everybody wants to be seen, feel
Mhm.
important, and know that they matter. And
Yep,
some days you need to know that more than other days for sure.
right. And
Yeah,
some days you can be the one to let other people know that, you know?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't happen in a vacuum.
No,
You know, it's a great opportunity both give and receive.
yes.
Yeah. So I know how to find you, but in case someone's like, first off, Heather's so cool. I wanted more time with her, and or I would like these resume services they speak of, and or I love maple syrup. How can people find you?
Yeah. Well, you can find me driving around the grocery stores. No, I'm just kidding. Probably. No. You can find me. So I'm on Facebook. I mean, obviously you can friend me on Facebook, but the name of my resume writing business is Feather Communications. So like Heather Feather. And then it's feather dash communications with an s.com. So that's where you can find me. Otherwise, obviously the Polka Dot website, you can hook up with me there. Got lots of connections there too. Yeah, but a happy summer's great for me. I have a ton of flexibility, so I can, do a virtual connect or whatever in person if you're local. I'd absolutely love to do that.
Awesome. And we'll put the information as far as Heather's website and stuff in the details of the description of this YouTube video.
Sounds
Heather, thank you so much. I think you know this, but it's never a wrong time to say it. I so appreciate you. I feel like you are a gift to all of us, and I feel privileged and honored to have you as my dot sister.
well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you and everybody in the group.
Awesome. All right, folks, we will be back soon with another 10-year dot interview. Until then, have a great day and know that we see you.